the beginnings of a CMS. As the name of my Go repo implies, this project had actually started off as just a test using Go SQLite, SQLite within the Go APIs. So GitHub, yeah. So this project, the main thing about it is you want to be able to upload files into it and have pipelines automatically do things like make thumbnails of all images. If there are images and you are using Amazon Web Services, then you want to have a key so that you can extract a description of what's in the images and then faces around. So let me go to here where I ran a command to build a Docker container, and I basically made this a monolithic container just to get going, because really the whole point of this project beginning was just to use SQLite for the as a replacement for Elasticsearch, basically. It's a CGO program, so so when I install it, I have things on the machine like curl wget SQLite, and importantly, I have a JRE in here so that I can put on like FFmpeg and ImageMagick. So what this allows me to do is it's like all the components that I need to actually do something. So I had built the container, and then what I do is I launch the container, just a straight up Docker container, and the only things in it that you really need to be concerned with in this simple Docker container is AWS creds, basically. I turned off volume mounting for now, just so it's easier to stop and start everything. So now that's up, you want a really simple API for uploading, downloading files into it. And the idea is you want to be able to just do put commands. I would normally use multi-fart MIME for this so that everything goes up as a transaction. But if you let go of having one HTTP transaction for a file and the metadata about it, you just do plain old curl posts where when you do their curl posts, it's like data binary. And go up here, the point is. So when I initialize the CMS, I upload some Go templates and a CSS style sheet, and then like the root permissions on the file system. And then I do a whole bunch of things like I tar up a React app, tar up a plain old JavaScript app, and like a media file that's like wrapped up. And so let's actually just do that. So now that the server is running, and I do get out here, and I want to deploy the app with all those curl commands. So imagine a CMS where curl like is your API, and you just need naming conventions. So for example, I had a tarball that had the whole Bible in it, cut up into books, and when it did the upload into it, these tarballs, it says it has a parameter called like install equals true, and so it unpacks it into the spot that's on, so that when it gets into the CMS, it's all unpacked. And what it does on side effects, like here, if I uploaded a JPEG, what happens is it says, oh, that's a JPEG of some sort. Let me go to Amazon and detect what's in it. And if it says, oh, this looks like a human, let me detect faces. And what that allowed me to do is to be able to tell who is in the image because of the way we're doing the pipeline. So if I go to the site, right now it's just trivial, but the design is here so that you can have a front-end guy come in and restyle all this stuff and do his own thing, right? Because one of the things you can do is you can upload into it on startup. You have things like your CSS style sheet, and it's literally the style sheet that you're seeing for this site in the Go template. So for instance, on the root page, it had like a search and a place to go start looking through the file system. There's that. Here's a template that comes back when you actually run like a keyword search and directory listing, right? And so the idea is when I drill into these, for instance, Book of Enoch, little tiny movie, PDFs, like for instance, um, that PDF there got uploaded, and it extracted the text on it, so that if I were to do a keyword search on it, if there were things to extract, then it would be able to find them. So let's go back and see if this actually works. So you can see that I'd upload the Bible, for instance. So look for Enoch, and it used Go SQLite to make a full text index of things. So so if I find something in Book of Luke, because there's a hit on the word king, and it'll be highlighted in gray in the places where it hit. But the real important thing about this is if I say puppy, I get back this JPEG called DGG, and the reason why it hit is because I went to Amazon and I ran an AI job, and it thinks it's plausible that that might be a puppy. And going further, if it goes into it and it sees that there are people in the photo, then you can look up things by name. So if I were to search on the name of a person here, Sergey, and it comes back with something, right? And similarly with a different name, so so it's just some JPEG called some dude, and who is this dude? It's that dude. That is Robert Oppenheimer. Okay, it figured it out. And the only reason it could figure it out is because when this JPEG was uploaded, it went to Amazon, and it's using file naming conventions. So about this JPEG, there are some labels, right? And about this, there also happens to be information about faces, all right? And that is why it was able to discover who this person was, Oppenheimer. That was a match, right? And another thing, this template here is just like something that lets you quickly navigate with a web browser. All of these templates, you can bypass the templates and just go straight to JSON. And the reason why you can go straight to JSON is because what you're going to do with this is you're going to want to make like real front end apps. And examples are, if I go into here, I'm mounted in an actual React app, and it's mounted because I went here. And let's see. So what it is, I said, if the build exists, don't do anything. Otherwise, set public URL equal dot, so that if I mount it at some random location, the images are not broken, right? So it's relative. So I just do the npm create React app, and then go ahead and run the build on it, and that means that the build directory will have something in it. So what I did is I made a tarball of it, and I uploaded it with curl. Right. So the idea is, instead of having a complex API, you instead use file naming conventions. And the file naming conventions are things like when you upload something, if there is metadata about it, you can calculate what the name is going to be for it. Okay, so there's another thing that the permission systems on here, you can look for permissions, and if it doesn't find permissions here, it'll go up the parent directories until it gets something, right? So even though there isn't a permissions in this directory on the file system, it walked the file system up to go find some. So, and there are cases where I did actually explicitly put permissions on things. So if we go look in the documents, for instance, if this shows up because there is a permissions put here for this exact file. Yeah, so some dude permissions Rego, secret scroll, red background, all that stuff. The idea is this is open policy agent language, and what I want to be able to do is I want it to be able to look at my um, my kind of like my JOT claims basically, right? So I'm not sure if I'm actually running as a user or running as anonymous. Yeah, so I'm running as a user, and I have like a random ID and a cookie. And because I have a random ID and a cookie, the random ID and cookie ends up looking these up as my credentials. And so I'm an adult who is of driving age and an email address of this. So I could use this to write a Rego file to only set right equal to true if my email address is equal to the one in here, and that would basically mean that like I am the owner. So that's something I'm still working on. I've done another project. It's not too long to get permissions working, but yeah, this is like one of the ideas. You get permissions working, and I also want to be able to put like banner labels on top and bottom that you could set, for these kinds of things. I want to be able to set them on files, not just on directory listings. In any case, so every file that goes up ends up having a thumbnail, which means that if you upload stuff and you do image galleries and stuff, you can just like put -- thumbnail dot file name on it, and it'll work. So, give an example. This is a Braille typewriter. Well, computer Braille typewriter, not standard Braille. Yeah, so I typed it out, and now I have some Braille, and yeah, so computer Braille, HELLO, comma WORLD, exclamation, right? Right. Yeah. So in here I have like it did do some label detection. And what is this thing? I've never actually tried to look at this before. What does it think this is? It thinks it's a joystick. Well, it's not really a joystick. It's it medication. Oh, it's a medical device, sort of. Yeah. What is it? It is it's a Braille display, electronic device. Like literally, you plug into your computer and you read one line at a time, right? If you're plugged into Bash, you'd see like ls-al on the Braille terminal or whatever. All right, so yeah, and this is a font that I made because ABCD. This is just like it's like the same thing in two places in two fonts, but I had to write the font for that. Apps. So beyond the React app, plain old HTML. It's because the whole point is you want to simplify deployment by just saying just zip it up and mount it into a point on it. But if you have like a real full blown app, and in your app, if you had like other services that you talk to, you would put this behind a reverse proxy. That would be like a standard thing, right? So if I started writing a big React app, or if I wanted to write a React app against this tree, I wouldn't really need service proxy because the endpoints are like right here. I just need to be able to do post requests, but post and get requests. But if I wanted to like talk to a different service, it should all be behind a reverse proxy so that the app that's in here would like do URLs to talk to that. So you should be able to make like apps that actually run along with their data. And one of the things about the kind of data, some things are not just a single file. This is a music video, and this music video does this like karaoke thing, right? And because it does this karaoke thing, you can actually search and get something back. And what's even better is because it's a search inside of VTT. I've done this before in a different project before. If you do a little bit of work, you can actually say, oh, this was a hit on VTT, and generate a URL that actually brings you to the point in the video where the hit was, right? So you like upload a 2-hour video, and you do a search on a keyword where somebody says something in a video, and have it like fast forward to the point in the video where it says like the thing. Yeah, but I guess other things, for init, my CSS style sheet. So like all the style sheets and templates are like in the server, because the idea is I want to just make it to where you don't actually configure the server. What you do instead of setting environment variables and stuff, you just like upload files into the server, and that way curl can be like your entire API. And I guess the two things that are missing is I do need a demo of doing like the reverse proxying. There's some stuff about getting the user set up, but I already do have a cookie set up for this. So you would need like a user setup, and the biggest one of all is I wanted to actually enforce permissions, so that like if you look at the permissions, like say if I'm looking at this and I do right, it'll walk the tree and find the permissions for that. I wanted to like actually enforce it, because if there were permissions that you can only read it if you're like a certain person, I would see like the open policy agent code actually showing like what it did to like stop me from seeing that file. Right, but for the most part, I'm just using it to show these labels during listing. In any case, it handles big files pretty well, because the Go server is actually just like good at that. Right, so that's it. End of demo.